Let's meet Ally Blake. Ally Blake is an award-winning Australian romance author who sold more than 4 million copies of her more than 40 published novels, with each translated into multiple languages worldwide. Her books have been shortlisted for several international awards, including the Holt Medallion, and she won the Romantic Times Book Club Best Harlequin Presents. She's a sought-after speaker. Ally has travelled throughout Australia hosting long-form workshops on subjects like romance writing fiction, setting up social media, and becoming a more organised writer. She's an ambassador for romantic literature and Australian voices. Ally Blake has presented at writing conferences and literary festivals all over Australia, hosting the premier awards night for the Romance Writers of Australia organisation twice. Ally also hosts Romance Book Club and the Great Aussie Book Club for Brisbane Libraries. She's appeared in New Idea magazine, in Madison magazine, in Style magazine, and has been profiled on TV shows A Current Affair and The Project, and interviewed for several international newspapers and radio programs. Ally is a mentor of new authors, a manuscript assessor, and a regular speaker at Queensland Writers' Centre, having hosted sessions at GenreCon and in-house via their printable author branding program. A highlight for Ally was seeing one of her early books set as required reading for a course on writing popular fiction at a university in North America. She's published with Harlequin Mills & Boon, Entangled Publishing, and Tulay Publishing. Let's meet Ally and hear her fabulous journey to publication.
I've always been a bit of a daydreamer, a voracious reader who forever had a crush on some character or another. Some of my favourite childhood memories are spun around sitting in a quiet corner of the school library, nose deep in Judy Blume and John Wyndham, borrowing my older cousin's Sweet Dreams and Sweet Valley High books. A little later on, ferreting through the bags of secondhand Mills and Boons under my grandmother's bed. And I always wrote. The fairy stories in primary school led to angsty poetry in high school, song lyrics and movie scripts while at university, and the truth is, I'd write if no one paid me to. But did I ever imagine I could make a career of it? Apart from writing Academy Award-winning writer-director as my future career in all my school diaries, not at all. For writing, I think, is one of those jobs that are dream jobs, like becoming a ballet dancer or an astronaut, when in fact, when people find out that's what I do for a living, I'm still cornered and peppered with questions about it. So here's my publication story, and there's no cornering required. Following school, I undertook a Bachelor of Arts degree at the University of Queensland, taking subjects I adored rather than following any kind of career plan. And for me, that meant English, lots and lots of English. I devoured Shakespeare and Wharton, movie scripts and advertising copy, and I wrote, and I wrote, and I wrote. Mostly screenplays by that stage, as I love movies as much as books, especially classics with snappy, crackling, romantically delicious scripts like Audrey Hepburn and Peter O'Toole in How to Steal a Million, splendiferous. Hitchcock's Rear Window is bliss, while Pillow Talk is still one of the best films ever penned. I travelled, I got married in Las Vegas, I worked in all kinds of wonderful jobs, including cheerleading for a pretty big football team, and I wrote every spare moment I had. Then one day, instead of writing scene 1, I wrote chapter 1, and it felt like I'd put on the most comfortable slippers on the planet. And that first story was a romance. I mean, how could it not have been, considering my complete immersion in that narrative world from such a young age? Was it a work of art? I'd say no. So Luke and Lily's story, aka The Muted Heart, now resides in the very bottom of a dusty box and will never see the light of day. But the most important thing about that story was I finished it. In writing that first book, I discovered that I could actually write 50,000 words of a book with a proper beginning and middle and end, which for anyone who started writing a book and not finished, you'll understand what an achievement that actually is. So that story, whilst flawed, also lit a fire in the belly. So having done it once, I wanted to do it again. So I wrote on lunch breaks while working full time, on weekends, late into the night. Only then I was able to use that first story as a test subject. Where did I delve into cliche? Where did my pacing let me down? And this is a big one. What did I do well? Which bits of that first story made my heart race, made me laugh, made me teary, made me feel what the characters were feeling? And that's where I gleaned and honed my natural voice. So amidst all that gleaning and honing, I did some sneaky research and found out that my book was just the right length for Mills and Boon. What I didn't know at the time is they received about 20,000 unsolicited manuscripts a year, and that's above and beyond their contracted authors. So from that slush pile, they bought about 10 new authors a year. Probably one bit of research it was best not knowing at the time. I also joined the Romance Writers of Australia, which is an organisation filled with people with the urge to write and sell romantic fiction. They have contests, they have mentorship schemes, they have critique groups, and a yearly conference at which you can meet and learn from published authors, agents, and publishers alike. So as newlyweds, my husband and I had moved to Melbourne, a beautiful, bustling, cultural city we both adore, and we planned to spend our days going to the footy, seeing shows, taking road trips, whilst working just enough to fund our fun. Only in the honeymoon period of looking for some part-time work, I did what writers do, and I started the next book. The working title of that one was Wishin' and Hopin', and from the very first line, it felt like it had something, a spark, heart, conflict, warmth. Of course, I could have been the only person on the planet to think so, but in some fit of youthful gumption, I decided to send the first 3 chapters to Mills and Boon in the UK. By that stage, my membership with Romance Writers of Australia had given me some insight into how things worked in the industry. So it can take many months to hear back. Many, many months. After all these months, the likelihood is a form rejection letter. Thank you for your submission, but it does not fit our criteria. Very polite. If lucky, one might get a nice rejection letter where the editor has taken the time to give some pointers as to what worked and what needed work. Perhaps even a compliment slip, which means they'd like to see your next submission, which means the many months of waiting could be cut down to only a few months. The dream is to have the editor ask to see the rest of your book. I was aiming high. I wanted one of those nice rejection letters. I wanted someone to say, you know what, your writing doesn't completely suck. 9 months after sending in the first 3 chapters, I received a letter asking to see the rest. Of course, I was too busy going to the footy, seeing shows, taking road trips, so I madly finished the story over the next few weeks before, with sweating palms, I remember the feeling, I carried that weighty thing to my local post office. This was September 2002, pre-email, everything was done by post. So off to the UK it went. $40 later, it was gone. The day was my 2nd wedding anniversary, which, romantically speaking, had to add some kind of extra fairy dust. So I set in for the next big wait, again, hoping the envelope that arrived rejecting my book would be more than a single page, offering up a little advice and a little hope. Late January 2003, the phone rang. My husband answered. He gave me the phone with a funny little smile on his face. "Hello, Ally," said the voice on the other end. "This is Bryony Green from Mills and Boon, London. How are you?" And I might have said something along the lines of, luckily editors are very used to shocked gibberish. Turned out they liked my book. But this was, and it was repeated to me several times, not an offer to buy. They had some revision suggestions in mind if I'd be willing to make some changes to the book. Time was a factor. Could I have it back to her in a couple of days? That's the irony of publishing. It had been over a year since I'd sent in my initial submission, but could I have the revisions done by Wednesday? I was working full time, I was right in the middle of a work conference, and yes, of course, absolutely, I can have it back to you by Wednesday. So I worked on those revisions every night and I got them in on time and I waited. Come the Saturday morning, I awoke to an email from Bryony asking if I was awake, if she could call. She's in the UK, remember? So of course, by the time I got the email, she was home in bed, gone for the weekend, meaning she wouldn't get my "yes please" answer until Monday night our time. Cue the longest weekend of my life. 10:30 p.m. the next Monday, the phone rang. It was Bryony. "How are you? How's your weekend? How's the weather over there?" She was toying with me, I'm sure. Then she finally let me know that at the acquisition meeting the previous Friday, they'd all agreed that they loved the book and wanted to buy it. Mind-blowing. The contract I received in the mail was dated the 14th of February, Valentine's Day. I told you the romantical fairy dust worked. That book was titled The Wedding Wish, and it was published by Harlequin Mills and Boon in December 2003. A while ago now, and yet, anytime author copies of my books arrive at my front door, I still feel that same breathless thrill that my name is on the cover of the kinds of books that my grandmother loved so much she devoured them like air.